Hello, I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander, and I'm really grateful you guys are all here to stand up and fight back. These are frightening times, and it would have been easier for everybody in this room to stay home tonight and doom scroll. It really would. How many people, you can confess, like how many people thought, I would like to stay in my room and doom scroll tonight? All right, not too many. But here's the thing. Here's the whole idea behind tonight's event. It matters when people stand up, right? What tyrants count on is fear. That is their whole game plan. They know that if they get out there and make people afraid, then people will cower and stay in their rooms and doom scroll and then bend the knee. And then the next person will also be more likely to do the same. And you can already, unfortunately, start to see just that. I mean, you don't have to look far. Right here in New York City, instead of having a mayor who is standing up and fighting for New Yorkers, we have a mayor who has bent the knee to Donald Trump and is selling out our immigrant neighbors and allowing ICE into our city. What do we have to say about that? And you're seeing it in other places as well. There are law firms, some of them headquartered in our city, who even though they've sworn an oath to uphold equal justice under law, have sold out that principle by making a deal with Donald Trump. And even you can see that in universities because rather than stand up and fight back, Columbia University chose to make a deal with this president and sell out the commitments of academic freedom and free speech. And look, that's how people get more and more afraid. That's how democracy gets eroded and undermined. That's how authoritarianism creeps forward and democracy weakens and dies. But here's the thing, and this is why you guys are here tonight. It matters when people stand up and fight back. And we're seeing that as well, because yesterday, Harvard University decided that they would not bend the knee to Donald Trump, that they would stand up for academic freedom and for free speech. And some law firms, like another one in this town, WilmerHale, where some of us have some friends. You could clap for WilmerHale even though they're a big white shoe law firm. Decided that it would be important to stand up and fight back. And there's other lawyers doing it too. How about New York State Attorney General Tish James? That is appropriately the biggest cheer so far because she and other attorneys general have gone into court to stand up for birthright citizenship, to stand up for the funding that is coming for our healthcare and our schools and our housing, to stand up and fight back for the basic principles of civil rights and equal justice under law. It matters when people stand up and fight back. When people like Cory Booker stood up for 26 hours. And I know that many people in this room are standing up and fighting back as well. So how many of you were out there? And you could actually stand up now. We're out there last Saturday for the Hands Off March. All right. That is most of the room, it looks like. All right, thank you guys. For this, you could just raise your hands, I guess. Has anyone attended one of the Tesla takedowns? All right, let's hear it for these Tesla takedown organizers. Anyone that organized a meeting with your union or your community group in which you're talking about what you're going to do to defend workers' rights or the rights of immigrants to stand up and fight back? Anyone here supporting a mayoral candidate who's committed to making New York City a place that stands up and fights back? Right on. It matters when people stand up and fight back. and show that energy and build that power, and then give the next person more courage and energy, that they see you don't have to cower in fear. It's better not just to be in your room doom scrolling. We don't have to cave to this authoritarian president. We can organize together and say no and give more courage to that next institution, that next university, that next law firm, that next attorney general, that next candidate, that next person who might get out there and march. And you can feel that energy moving. So on the one hand, they're going to do more and more things that make us afraid. You know, we even saw this yesterday, taking yet another student, a New York City student, you know, from his citizenship interview at an ICE office. But you are also seeing, moving in the other direction, people organizing and getting out there and showing less fear and fighting back. And that is what we are doing here tonight. I'm proud to live in a city and be running to lead a city that has so many people with the courage and the fight and the guts and the creativity to get out there in all of these different ways to say, whatever the thing is that's under threat that's most important to me. There's folks in this room standing up and fighting to make sure that our reproductive rights are protected. There's people in this room fighting to make sure that immigrant rights are protected. There's people in this room fighting to make sure that workers' rights are protected. There's people in this room fighting to make sure that New York City is protected. And I'll talk about this a little later, but of course that's what I have been trying to do as well. That's what I did when Elon Musk tried to come and take $80 million away from the people of New York City. We said, no way, we're gonna get that money back. That's what I did when I called on New York City to sue Tesla on behalf of the city's pension funds so that we could get changes in governance and leadership at that company, which we sorely need. And that's what I did earlier this week with New York City Council members standing up for the sanctuary city laws that I was proud to co-sponsor. And I want to give them props today. Here's a place I actually want to praise one of the other people running for council, because I don't know if you saw, but the New York City Council is in court today suing the mayor over trying to put ICE on Rikers Island. And props to Speaker Adrienne Adams and the City Council for standing up and fighting back. That's actually, you know, when we voted for that law, and when Melissa Mark-Viverito was Speaker and I was in the City Council, we voted for that law to say ICE cannot be on Rikers Island. And why did we do that? We do that because we knew we couldn't trust ICE to honor due process. 87% of the people on Rikers Island are just awaiting their trial. They deserve their due process. They haven't been convicted of anything. And we didn't know that, lo and behold, something like would happen, like has happened to this young man, Abrego Garcia, not just denied his due process rights, but deported in an error of identity and now being tortured in an El Salvadoran prison. That is why we passed those laws, and that is why I am so grateful the City Council is standing up to sue and fight for them. So we put this town hall together because we know it matters when people stand up and fight back, and we know that it matters when you see other people doing it together. Because when you're on your own, you're more likely to be isolated, to be picked off, to get more fearful. And when you see other people creatively standing up and fighting back, the opposite happens. And that's why we've organized tonight to hear from some people who are getting busy organizing to demand and fight for change in all kinds of different ways. Some elected officials, some community organizations, some labor folks, some folks doing disability justice, some folks fighting to protect trans New Yorkers. You're gonna hear tonight from some people standing up and fighting back and offering us an opportunity to get involved with them all together. And I can't wait to get started. So I want to take a minute to appreciate the space we're in. So thank you to First Unitarian Congregation in Brooklyn for letting us host this town hall here. This congregation happens to be the oldest building in continuous use by a congregation in New York City. And I thought that Frederick Douglass had spoken from this podium, but that turned out to be a different Brooklyn church. But we're still going to channel Frederick Douglass's energy tonight in here, if that's okay with you. And what you're going to hear from who you're going to hear from tonight are a series of fabulous speakers, and also people just getting started in this work. People who've decided this is an important time to stand up and fight back. So we're going to go through and hear from a few speakers. I'll come back at the end and say just a little bit more. Then we will take some questions in town hall style. I believe you got cards when you came in. Some of you, it looks like, have already written questions on them. Well, you'll get to ask the questions, but we just want to try to put them in like an order that helps make them build power together. So if you didn't get one, raise your hand and we will hand them out to you. And to kick us off is one of the people that I look to give me hope and inspiration when I'm feeling down, when I get in that space where I just want to doom scroll. And that does happen sometimes, believe it or not, every now and then. And I'm like, where are Meg is telling the truth, which is that doesn't happen very often. But still, what is true is that when I think about the New Yorkers who are good at seeing, like, when we are afraid, what makes it possible for us to stand up together, what is that vision of a more just and inclusive New York City that inspires us to find the thing in us that is the most courageous when we are feeling fear. One of the people that I am thrilled to look to is Ana Maria Archila, the co-director of the New York Working Families Party. As you guys know, I think the Working Families Party just announced the dream slate of 4 New York City mayoral candidates, and I am so proud to be on it. So thank you very much, Working Families Party. WFP is building power for working people, and I am delighted to kick us off tonight to hand it over to Ana Maria Archila. Thank you very much, Ana Maria.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. It is so beautiful to be here with all of you today. I woke up this morning and called one of my closest friends, and I said, I am really afraid. I'm really afraid. And I have experienced so much fear this year, thinking about people, specific people, with specific voices and faces and stories and relationships to me that I am afraid for. I have woken up so many times wondering, is there a way back to the sense of safety that we have experienced before? Is there a way back to the sense that our democracy is going to survive this moment? And I have found myself having to really walk past that fear and embrace it and say, that is actually the appropriate response to what is happening to us right now. When we see students being literally kidnapped in the streets for writing an article about Palestine, and only for that reason, we have to be afraid. And when we see a father being picked up and deported to the place where his life is most at risk, and the president saying, I will do nothing to recover that person, the appropriate response is for us to be afraid. What is happening to us is truly terrifying. And then I look at my children and I say, hell no, absolutely not. I can embrace the fear, but I cannot sit in fear every day of this year and next year and the year after that. It is my job to find the seeds of optimism and to water those seeds and to remember that I am not alone and that we are not alone and that we are not powerless in this moment. It is our job to do precisely this very thing, to get together in community and remember that actually the thing that makes us strong is our connection to one another and our commitment to not sit and just watch, to recognize that we are not witnesses of history, watching it on television. We are actually agents in history, making it right this moment, right now. And I remember right after Election Day when people said, the resistance is done. We did it wrong last time. We're not gonna do it again. We're just gonna have to organize in some other different magical ways that we still don't know. We will find our way one day. And we sort of froze a little bit for a few months. Do you remember that? November, December, where are the big marches? What's going on? And a little bit, little by little, then like Elon Musk started throwing, his weight around and firing thousands of workers and shutting down agencies and threatening every single thing that we know helps people live better lives. And then we saw people doing all kinds of beautiful things. Protests at Tesla. When they took healthcare away from transgender kids, people showed up and said, NYU, what are you doing? And at every step, we have seen people do what we know how to do, which is when we see that something is wrong, we say, okay, this is not right. Maybe I am afraid, but I know that if we take action together, we are actually doing what is necessary to change the course of this moment, right here, right now. And then, April 5th, I saw so many people stood up, 5 million people in every state, more than 1,000 actions, 1,200 actions across the country. People came out and said, hands off our healthcare, hands off our unions, hands off our families, hands off our immigrants, hands off our rights, hands off. We will not allow Trump and Elon Musk to scare us into inaction. We will feel the fear, we will recognize it as a signal that something is wrong, and then we will act. We will act from that feeling that is so deep, and we will say to one another, this is our moment to actually make history together. And I wanna say that we will have so many opportunities. I was one of the people sort of helping cook up the action on April 5th, and we said, maybe we should get a permit for 1,000 people. We thought maybe more than 1,000 people will show up, but let's get a permit for 1,000. We were preparing ourselves for maybe 10,000 people, and then we thought maybe it's gonna be 20,000 people, and maybe we need more marshals. And then it was 100,000 people, 100,000 people. And 100,000 people being marshaled by volunteers. Every single thing was done by volunteers. Every sign, every picture, every safety measure that was taken so that people would be safe in that march of over 100,000 people was done by people like your neighbor. The person sitting next to you is the one that did that. And that is what we're gonna have to do again and again and again. We told the press on April 5th, this is the biggest action we have seen in the Trump administration, and it is smaller than the next one. Yeah? So, because we will, by taking action, what we are doing is giving ourselves permission to breathe through our fear, giving our loved ones the sense that we will have their backs and we will protect them, and giving other people around us who are maybe wondering, are we gonna be okay? The opportunity, the invitation to come and join us, and to remember that they too are courageous, and that this courage is deeply contagious, and that we will do this as long as we have to do it, to make sure that all of us survive not just this year and this administration, but we survive together with a democracy that keeps us alive so that we can give to people that come after us the country they deserve, the country that has been promised. And I have to say, I am deeply, deeply moved by all the ways that new people are organizing in new ways. In the last Trump administration, new organizations emerged. Indivisible, where are the Indivisibles? And Indivisible is playing a hugely important role in this moment, demanding of every elected official in Congress to take action, to stand up, to not be complacent, to not be too quiet. And then there are new organizations, 5051, really just emerged, and it's doing incredible things. We will create new things. We will transform our democracy with these new formations, these new political communities. That is what we are doing right now. But also, what happens in every city, what happens in every state, and who leads the cities and who leads the states will be instrumental in this moment. When we have an aggressive authoritarian regime in the White House, we need leaders who will stand up, who will protect us, who will use every tool at their disposal to make sure that the people in this city are not only safe from the attacks of an authoritarian regime, but that we are actually helping turn the tide. And that's why we were so, so proud and have always been proud to have Brad as one of the leaders that helps make sure that that is true every single day. And you know, the Working Families Party is not one of the new organizations. We've been around for about 25 years. Who's a member of the Working Families Party? Let me see. Okay, who votes on the Working Families Party line in November? Hey, I love it. Okay, so if you are not already in sort of the list, the text list, the email list of the Working Families Party, I want to help you get on our list so that you know what we are doing and you can receive our invitations. And it's very simple. Who has a cell phone? Let me see. Okay, so you can text right now the number 30403, 30403. Text to that number the letters WFP. 30403, you text the letters WFP, and then you'll receive information about how to get connected with us. And I want to say that over the next few weeks, there are a few things happening. On April 19th, which is this Saturday, there will be huge actions around Earth Day to sort of centering climate justice. It's a really important sort of moment to sort of recognize the level of destruction that is possible under the Trump regime and to turn it around. And then on May 1st, Thursday, I believe it's May 1st, that will be the next big thing. So we will gather, I think at 5 p.m., labor unions, community organizations, people who want to make sure that we remember that we are not alone and that take on the task of reminding others that we are not alone. We will act together. So if you are on our list, you will get all the information. But remember, May 1st is the next big moment where we show them on April 5th, we said it was going to be big. On May 1st, we said it was going to be bigger, okay? So let's make sure to gather. And then, finally, we have to make sure that we are doing the work of holding Republicans accountable. Right now, Trump and Elon Musk, with the help of the entire Republican machine, are doing the work of dismantling our entire safety net. They want to cut Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security to give huge tax breaks to billionaires. And we have an opportunity to actually engage people who are directly impacted by these cuts, which is pretty much everybody. Cuts to Medicaid will touch every single person in this room, every single hospital, every single economy, whether it's in the city or across the state, will be touched by these cuts. So there is a lot of work for us to do. But I want to just come back to where I started, which is that when I look around and I see what's happening with immigrant families, I feel it deeply in my bones. It is me. It's my loved ones. When I see what's happening to transgender folks, I feel it in my bones. It's my family. And when I see students whose role is to actually demand for this country to be better, and I see what universities are doing, folding and making, demanding of students and faculties to be quieter, I feel deep, deep concern. But I know very much that if we turn the tide of this moment into one of absolute rebellion against this monstrosity that is coming from the White House, they will find the space to actually follow us. Right now, they are folding, not Harvard, but Columbia University, right, and others, many law firms, as Brad mentioned, and Trump is picking them one by one because he's counting on people to be isolated, to just be focused on the very narrowest self-interest. He's counting on people to shrink, to say it's better to protect the things that I have instead of risking exposure and attacks. And that is why every action that we take is so necessary. We contain, each one of us, a different future. But it only manifests if we act together, like we're doing tonight. So thank you so much for being here and for making this happen.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Thank you, Working Families Party. You know, Ana Maria mentioned that in the moments after the election, it felt like people were kind of back on their heels. And one thing that contributed to that, I know, was this sort of debate of, okay, do we stand up for the people that are most being kind of in the eyesights of this administration, for immigrants, for trans folks, for people with disabilities? Or do we kind of help cast a broad message that shows all Americans the tariffs are going to increase prices, a tax on workers are going to make it more difficult for, you know, people to earn a living? And the answer is we must do both of those things. We're not going to divide between those things. And it's not a choice between those things. So I'm going to talk a little later about what we can do in New York City to build a city where we actually confront the cost of living and make the housing more affordable and make childcare more affordable and stand up and fight for the rights of workers and how we fight back on that broader agenda. But we wanted to make sure tonight that we also hear from people who are on the front line so that we don't let anybody get separated. They have this phrase in Brazil that they say for fighting Bolsonaro, and my Portuguese is not great, so you'll have to forgive me for this, but I think it's something like ninguém solta a mão de ninguém. No one let go of anyone's hand, and we wanted to model that tonight. So you're now here going to hear from folks who are on the front lines, people standing up and representing and fighting for immigrant New Yorkers, for trans New Yorkers, and for disabled New Yorkers. And for the first of those, it is my true delight to introduce Jeannie Hernandez from Make the Road. You might have heard that on Monday, Make the Road Action, the political arm of Make the Road, endorsed me to be their #1 ranked candidate for mayor. But honestly, as thrilled and honored as I am for that, and I am deeply, deeply honored by it. And one thing that connects Make the Road and me is our love of Adi Barkan, this activist who gave his life fighting for the healthcare of all Americans and all people. Even more important than that is there is no one tougher than Make the Road when it comes to organizing and fighting for immigrants and for the rights of all people to benefit. This is the greatest immigrant city that the world has ever known. It is our job to fight and keep it that way. The statue in the harbor is not like a given. It's something we have to fight to protect and uphold, and no one does that better than Make the Road. So Jeannie, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening. My name is Jenny Hernandez. I am a proud member of Make the Road Action from Brooklyn. Make the Road Action is an organization of members working for respect and dignity for all. We are based in working-class Latino and immigrant neighborhoods. We fight for immigrant rights, but also for housing, workers' rights, good jobs, and safe neighborhoods. I have been involved with Make the Road since 2017, when Trump first got elected. I found Make the Road to be a safe haven for immigrants during that challenging time, which inspired me to stay and actively participate in the work. I invite you all to join us in the impactful work that Make the Road Action is doing for our communities. However, it is once again a frightening time for us immigrants. We have heard for years that we should pay taxes, and millions of us do. We pay taxes that we will never benefit from, just for the opportunity to work in this country. Millions of people have attained ITINs to pay taxes because we have faith in this country and our futures here, holding on to the hope that things will eventually work out. However, today Trump and his team are determined to deport immigrants. It is important to clarify that this issue extends beyond just undocumented individuals. It encompasses anyone from another country who refuses to conform, who holds their opinions, and who genuinely believes in the rights outlined in the Constitution. Today, the Trump... Thank you. Today, the Trump administration is weaponizing the IRS, directing it to chase people down with ITINs, immigrants with social security numbers. These are the very mechanisms we use to integrate into society. And now they are being turned on us by racist, xenophobic, and fascist leaders. That is why this tax day is about so much more than just paying our taxes. It is about building a movement to stand up to Trump and say clearly, this is our home. That is why... That is why we are proud to have endorsed Brad Lander as our #1 pick yesterday. But the truth is that any of the candidates we endorse will stand up to Trump better than Adams is doing. We just need to put them there. So pay your taxes and vote on June 24th. Not just for Brad, but for me and all my immigrant brothers and sisters, and for a system that sees us as full people with valuable contributions and dignity. Let's turn our anger and frustrations into action. Thank you, y sí se puede.
All right. Woo!
Thank you, Jenny. That was amazing. Thank you, Make the Road. Just one thing I'll underline here. New York City, 40% of New York City residents were born in another country, are immigrants. 50% of the 8 million New Yorkers live in mixed status households with at least one immigrant, including 1 million children. Like, that is the future of New York City, and those are the folks who would be put at risk by family separation and deportation policies. So when we talk about this, like, this is not only like a few people in New York standing up and fighting, this is the future of New York City that Jenny and Make the Road are leading the fight for, and I am so grateful to you for doing it. Next, I'm proud to introduce Shannon Peitzer from the Transformative Schools and Aunties and Friends for Liberation, who work alongside this rising majority of parents in our public schools who want every single kid to feel welcome and safe in their school, and who are not gonna let Moms for Liberty or anybody else decide that they get to tell kids or families how to be or what to look like or who they are. Shannon, thank you so much for that work and for being here tonight. It's an honor to have you with us.
So about 10 minutes ago, I was told I was going on right after Anna Maria and the Working Families Party. And I'm like, oh man, my nerves, I'm sweating bullets. And then they say, it's okay, you're not going on after Anna Maria, you're going on after Make the Road. And I'm like, that doesn't change anything. Because those are wonderful orgs, but I'm gonna do my best to bring the fire, y'all. My name is Shannon Peitzer. My pronouns are she, they. I am a proud and out queer woman of trans experience. I've been living authentically for over a decade, and as Brad said, I'm here to talk about Aunties and Friends for Liberation. And I'm going to start by where I live right now. Thank you. I'm going to start with where I live. Now, I can't necessarily say on the record that it's the most diverse neighborhood in New York City, because I'm going to get fact-checked on that, and I'll get fact-checked hard, and I haven't fact-checked that, but I live in Ridgewood right now. And when I tell you this is a wonderfully diverse neighborhood, what I'm talking about is not a melting pot, because I feel like a melting pot, it's about assimilating. It's about adopting the dominant culture. Ridgewood is a stew. Ridgewood is a place where you can taste every little part of that neighborhood that makes it fantastic and wonderful, and I get to experience that every day when I get off the train coming home from work. And Ridgewood's under attack. New York City is under attack. Even here, a bastion of progressive values, where just a few miles away, the Statue of Liberty reminds us to embrace our tired, our poor, and our huddled masses yearning to break free, we're under attack. And when our vulnerable, when trans kids are under attack, Aunties for Liberation stands up and fights back. Now, I have to say on the record, I can't endorse political candidates. I'm not qualified to do that right now, and there hasn't been a vote on it. But we are always happy to stand with progressive warriors like Brad, who are standing up for the people that need it most. So thank you, Brad. So who is Aunties for Liberation? We're a group of anti-fascist activists standing with a growing majority of public school parents against the cultural and political power that right-wing hate groups like Moms for Liberty have built here in New York City, and especially in our community education councils. And let me tell you about a council that's very near and dear to my heart right now, which is Community Education Council 2 in Manhattan. Now, who's heard about what's going on in CECD2 right now? Show of hands. Some of you. Let me talk to you about Resolution 248. Resolution 248 is what I call a lie. Because what they say is, oh, we just want to have a conversation about trans women in sports. We want to have a conversation about kids being authentically themselves in public schools. And I think we all know what right-wing hate groups and bigots mean when they talk about having a conversation. We've seen it. I saw it myself. I attended one such conversation run by the people who are passing this resolution, who are backing it. It wasn't a conversation. It was a group of transphobes on stage. And when I tried to engage, I was told I wasn't allowed. So conversation, I don't see it, y'all. I don't see it. And so in CECD2 right now, we are organizing to repeal 248, and we are organizing to build joy and leadership in our communities for the values that New York City really stands for. We're queer people, we're trans people. Some of us are parents with trans kids, some of us are educators, some of us are just childless cat ladies, but we all stand together united, lifting our lamp beside the golden door for all students. We stand for queer rights, trans joy, racial justice, and the right to read, because y'all book bans are coming. They're trying to get book bans done in New York City too, and that's a travesty. Boo, yes, boo, yes. This is like the one time I'm okay with boos coming at me on stage. And we'd love to have you too as part of this movement. So what are we asking? The first is obvious. Vote, 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 folk. If you're a parent anywhere in New York City, see what's going on in your local community education council. Vote for the progressive champions who are trying to get on that council. Vote for mayor. Vote for any elected officials that you can. As they say, vote early and vote often. Come to a CECD2 meeting. The next one is April 23rd at 6 p.m. at Lab Middle School, and you can find that address on the CECD2 website. And let me tell you, I know like for some of you, attending a community education council meeting might sound dry and not fun. I promise you, it's so much fun. Part of what we've done at Aunties for Liberation is create this culture of joy, of bringing dance and bubbles and community and snacks. Oh my God, the snacks are amazing. To these meetings. So when I tell you that this small government meeting of 3 to 4 hours is honestly like a highlight of my month, I'm not just saying that so you come out. Join our mailing list. follow us on Instagram. Grab a handout. I think, did we put them in the back? We put them in the back. The handouts are in the back. Or just talk to people, because to quote Cesar Chavez, the famous community and labor organizer who was president of the United Farm Workers, when he was once asked by an aspiring young organizer, how do you organize? He said, well, first you talk to one person face to face, and then you talk to another. But Caesar, the impatient youth interrupted, how do you really get them involved? And said Caesar, well, first you talk to one person face to face, and then you talk to another. And that's our thing at Aunties for Liberation. We talk to people. And if nothing else, go home, talk to your friends, talk to your family. My own mother, who for a very long time I've been trying to get her involved in politics. Now she's out in Jersey, but I've been trying to get her in politics. And she now is getting involved in organizing. And let me tell you, she is like one of the most afraid people I know. So if she can get involved, y'all can get involved and talk to people too. Community education councils matter. Educational policy affects our future. And y'all can say that the CECs don't have a ton of teeth, but their plan here, y'all, is not just to pass their hateful resolutions in just one CEC. No, they want it across all of the CECs. Copycat resolutions is their game plan, so they can go to the Chancellor of Education and to other powers that be and say, well, look how many CECs are anti-trans, are anti-students with disabilities, are for large classrooms. And I just saw one of our handouts that a lot of the people who support 248 also don't approve of resources for lice checks, which, I don't know, that's just a thing I learned today about Moms for Liberty, y'all. Moms for Liberty is pro-lice. But there's a reason Moms for Liberty goes after these CEC councils. And my apologies if I'm spoiling I think 6-month-old movie following a 20-year-old musical following like a 30-year-old book. Don't fact check me on that. But to quote from Wicked, when you put them in cages real young, they never learn to speak. And that's why this matters. Because we want our youth in New York City to be able to speak about who they are and what matters to them. So join us, or join one of the other amazing groups here. Just get involved. Our opponents are active. And in 2025, in the second Trump administration, and in a political era where even New York City is under attack by bigotry, we cannot afford to be anything less than joyful, passionate, and above all else, active. Thank you, y'all.
All right, thank you, Shannon. That was great. Who learned something from listening to Shannon? And I want to say this thing, because you might not think, well, I don't know if I've done anything yet to kind of stand up for and support trans New Yorkers. But who here voted for Prop 1 last November? Yeah, I think probably almost everyone. Who here organized for Prop 1 last November? A lot of folks. That's part of what we did there, was put in the New York State Constitution a constitutional protection around gender identity and abortion care and sexual and reproductive health. It matters when we stand up. And just one more thing I'll add here, because just like, with this idea that Make the Road isn't just standing up for immigrant New Yorkers, but that's building power for all New Yorkers, that's true here as well. One of the things that I was proud to do with Queer New Yorkers when I was in the city council was get started an effort that actually Shahana Hanif, Councilmember Hanif, brought across the finish line to pass legislation to say that we added to the New York City human rights law a protection against discrimination based on height or weight or body type. So in employment or housing, you can't be discriminated against. And in what we're looking to help everybody do is feel and be proud and comfortable in their bodies, whoever they are. And everybody's got a right to that. So thank you for kind of inspiring not just the fight to protect trans New Yorkers, which is important, but leading that effort to see that civil rights helps paint an expansive vision for all of us. And the third of our speakers in this way is going to build on that. Last Saturday when we marched down Fifth Avenue, we began in front of the library and we ended at Bryant Park. And I was proud to march a bunch of the way with Mike Schweinsberg and 504 Dems and Dr. Sharon McLennan Weir, who leads the Sydney, the Center for Independence of the Disabled in New York, and is blind. So we were walking and marching together, and I was holding a sign that Mike had made, "Hands off the disabled." And when we got to Madison Square Park, what I remembered is that that was a very fitting place to end, because Madison Square Park was the birthplace of the disability rights movement. In the Great Depression, at the time of the New Deal, FDR had created the Works Project Administration, the WPA, to create jobs for Americans who were out of work. But in the first round, they had not created any jobs for people with disabilities. And so a dozen disabled New Yorkers showed up outside the office of the WPA, which happened to be in Madison Square Park, and went on a hunger strike until the WPA created jobs for Americans with disabilities all across the country. And that was the birth of the disability rights movement, which continues to this day in things like 504 Dems, and which we obviously critically need at this moment. It maybe isn't surprising, but still, just like one of the gross things about this president is, in addition to attacking everyone else, that he mocks and attacks Americans with disabilities. Like, what could make you a smaller person than attacking or mocking people with disabilities? And what builds a stronger movement than by fighting for the idea that what makes us citizens, what makes us Americans, what makes us equal, what makes us fighters is what's on the inside, not what we happen to have in our bodies at the moment. And so I am really proud to introduce next Mike Schweinsberg from 504 Dems. Please welcome him.
Thank you kindly. I left my notes home, so I kind of rewrote them here. Who is complaining about following speakers? I have to follow you? I'm proud to. Thank you kindly. So I'm Mike Schweinsberg, president of the 504 Democratic Club, which is the nation's first and largest advocating for the civil rights of people with disabilities. We are one of only 3 citywide clubs, and we're proud to boast a nonpartisan membership. In fact, our first vice president is a Republican, because we realize that disability doesn't discriminate, so neither should we. We even have a member who's not even registered to vote, and I don't care. If he wants to fight for disability rights, welcome 504. One of the things I want to talk about that Brad began to refer to is our namesake. We are named after Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which was the first legislation to codify our civil rights. Before that, we had no civil rights. And today, 17 red states are suing to declare Section 504 unconstitutional. No, the greater shame is that the Department of Justice has indicated that they are not going to defend that federal law. So, we have formed a coalition, and I have to apologize to you ahead of time. I can see in my mind that lonely box in my living room that I should have put by the door. I know I should have. But it contained our one-pager, which clearly spells out our mission and how you can help us become part of the coalition. So all I can do is ask you to please go to our website. Is it up there? No, it's not. 504dems.org, real easy. And you can view or download our one-pager there and join us in this struggle, because look, what we realized when this first happened was, okay, first thing I did was I called Sydney, that Brad referred to, the Center for Independence for the Disabled of New York. I said, isn't this terrible? Let's unite. And then almost immediately I realized sure, the disability community could come together and fight this. But hey, we'd be playing into Donald Trump's hands, wouldn't we? Because that's what he wants. His full frontal assault counts on us all getting in our own corners and fighting for the rights of the groups that we support to the exclusion of others. So the coalition we're forming is a nationwide coalition of all social justice warriors. Because that's the only way we're going to win. He is counting, his divide and conquer strategy is, oh my goodness, I haven't even gotten into why I've endorsed Brad yet. I'm going to go over, I'm sorry. Because really, I want you to hear that. But I do want you to please look at our website and download that document, and please come join us. Have your organization join us. Have your school join us. Have your community group join us. We are going to be having our kickoff in early May, and it will be hybrid. You can come and join us in person. You can join us on Zoom. So please download that, and please come join us. We are the largest minority by far. Don't believe the census. They put us at 11 to 13% of the population, and that's bullshit. Look at the CDC website for as long as you can, because I know it's going to be taken down. But every year they did a careful study, and in July of 24, they upped their percentage of people, of adults with disabilities, to 28.7. That doesn't include our kids. So really, we're well over 30, if not 35% of the population. Yet when was the last time, present company excluded, when you heard an elected official or a candidate, when they're enumerating all the marginalized communities they seek to protect, ever mention people with disabilities? They don't, right? When they're railing against the isms to which they're opposed, racism, sexism, ageism, classism, ever hear them say the word, and do you all know the word, ableism? No, they don't. But then along comes Brad. Brad, I've had the pleasure of knowing for 20 years now, because I was communications director for 8 years for Brooklyn Councilwoman, whose district adjoined his. And we had the opportunity to be together on a lot of mutual concerns. So I was able to watch him. I was able to watch him form the Progressive Caucus. Yeah. But I was aware of Brad before I knew him, because of the delight I took in work he was doing at the Fifth Avenue Committee and at Pratt, building supportive housing. When he was, we fought together, well, my councilwoman, I was a communications director, in that case I fought, but for supportive housing in the neighborhood and the NIMBYism, Brad stood up to them all. When they said, oh, you're going to destroy our property values, you can't do this, you can't help people with disabilities, help people with mental health concerns. He stood his ground, the same as he did with the Gowanus Canal development and all of that. What I'm so looking forward to in his mayoralty is his Housing First program. There is nothing that will better help people with mental health conditions begin to and realize an independent life. It's not going to happen at a shelter. It's not going to happen at an institution. And it's certainly not going to happen in jail. Remember, Rikers is the largest psychiatric facility in the state, because that's where we're housing people with mental health conditions. Brad's very clear concept, proven by the numbers, is that we can house them. They don't want to go to shelters, congregate settings where there's violence and no individual attention. They want their own lockable door, their own home. And given that degree of independence will lead them, this has been proven, by the way, in city after city, except for New York City. It will lead them to independent living and better mental health. So thank you very much for that proposal. I really, really appreciate that. Before I step away, I just want to talk about what he mentioned, April 5th, because I can't get over it. You know, he carried that hand-lettered sign that my partner made up, hands off the disabled, from the beginning of the march all the way to the end. What he didn't mention is that his wife, Meg, guided our vice president, who was a wheelchair user, around the potholes and all the way down. He visually described to Dr. Sharon McLennan Weir, who is totally blind, what was happening, the unique signs. I remember him pointing up to windows and saying they're taking photographs of us from the second floor up there. And then when he learned it was her birthday, he led about 150 people into a chorus of "Happy Birthday to You." Point is, his commitment to our community and to the communities that are represented here tonight is real. It's not lip service. We are so used to the promises, the platitudes, and then the inaction. But I know that Brad Lander is going to make a difference for the disability community, for the immigrant community, for working class, for New Yorkers in general. He is committed to it. I've watched him for 25 years, known him for 20 years, and I can definitely say that what he says is real. So I hope y'all will get out there and vote. I hope you will take someone with you, and I hope that you will get on the phone and talk to people who are in other boroughs and tell them to go. We need Brad Lander as our mayor. And then finally, I just have one message, if you'll allow me, and I know I'm way over. God, way over. But I'd like to deliver a message to Donald Trump that I also gave this morning at a press conference standing outside a Social Security office. And it is to borrow some famous phraseology from the past. Mr. Trump, until this moment, I think I never really gauged your cruelty or your recklessness. You have done enough. Have you no sense of decency? Thank you kindly.
All right, thank you, Michael, 504 Dems, and I'll just kind of complete the kind of trifecta here. Let's just remember, Mike got us up to, about 35% of people being people with disabilities, but we are all just temporarily abled, right? So if we are lucky, we'll live long enough to need those subway elevators that you have been fighting for, and a more walkable and livable city, and the ways that help us navigate whether our eyesight is good or our hands are working. So thank you for what you are doing to fight for disabled New Yorkers and for all of us. One more time for Jenny and for Shannon and for Michael. Thank you, all three of you. We're getting close now to the end of our program, and then we'll get some questions and back and forth and dialogue. Just two more folks to hear from, and one of them is by video message. Some of you that were on a kickoff we did earlier got to meet him, but a dear friend of mine is Congressmember Greg Casar from Texas. He's the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he is helping lead the fight right now and saying, this is a time to divide between the fighters and the folders, those who are standing up and fighting. And so he sent a message to us, which we are going to watch, and then we'll, Greg Casar.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Greg Casar. I want to thank you so much for joining Brad's town hall tonight about how we can all push back against the abuses of the Trump-Musk administration. Look, I've known Brad Lander for a long time, ever since I was 25 years old and I was a labor organizer, newly elected to the city of Austin City Council, and I knew we could count on Brad to mentor and teach council members and progressive leaders all over the country on how we can actually build a better community and a better democracy for ourselves from the ground up by doing this important work at the local level. And then once Trump was elected the first time, how people in our local neighborhoods and folks pushing their local leaders could really be the front line of the resistance against Trumpism, and how good, competent local government that delivers can defeat and destroy the kind of cynicism that create the Elon Musks and Trumps of the world in the first place. Really, the organizing work you're doing on the ground, every single person from Texas to New York, that is really how we win back the working class voters that the Democratic Party so desperately should be representing and that we need. And so you're helping by electing Brad and by pushing back against the Trump-Musk administration. You're building the kind of movement to create a better Democratic Party, to create a better future for New York and for the entire country, and for us to not just win back these midterm elections in 2 years, but make sure that we beat the next Donald Trumps, beat the next J.D. Vances, and build the kind of country and world that we all deserve. We need the right kind of leadership to inspire us to do it. And we need the people with the right kind of experience doing progressive governance to show that real progressive governance really does work and can deliver for everyday people. So thanks so much for supporting Brad and for fighting back in this moment.
And thank you to my team for getting Greg's message. At 8 years ago, when we organized something like this over in Park Slope at Congregation Beth Elohim after Trump was elected for the first time, and lots of folks came out and said, oh, one of the most amazing Indivisible chapters in the country, Indivisible BK. And that was where I first met Liat Olenek. And she and that crew have not stopped organizing in the 8 years since, building power for a democracy that works for everyone. And so 8 years later, it is amazing. 8 years and 2 kids later, it's amazing to have Liat Olenek here to protect them.
Hi, everyone. Brad basically said what I was planning on saying about Indivisible. We do have some slides, though. My name's Liat. I'm a Brooklynite. I'm an organizer, educator, parent, and organizing is my coping strategy. It's how I feel okay in this world. I highly recommend it. It works pretty well most of the time. And I'm here representing Indivisible Brooklyn, which, as Brad said, has been around for, I think, 9 years now, almost 9 years. I don't know, math. And, came together thanks to Brad Lander recognizing the importance of bringing people out of the community, out of isolation, and into organizing in 2016. And has not stopped ever since. We are 100% volunteer powered, 100% grassroots, no budget, no staff, and have kept going through moments where everyone wanted to be out in the streets and organizing, and moments where people were not showing up. And so many other important people, some of whom are here tonight, helped keep the group going through all of that, and I'm so thankful to have been and to be part of the community. Whoever's doing the slides, if you want to keep going. Okay, next, you can go ahead. So does everyone here know Indivisible? Roughly, probably. Some hands, some claps. So it is a nationwide movement that is focused on democracy in a sort of with a multi-issue lens. There are indivisible groups all over the country. Indivisible Brooklyn, is the best one. You can go to the next slide. The theory of change is, I would say, the most based on this inside-outside strategy. So there's a lot of direct pressure, direct communication with the powerful, especially with elected officials. But then there's also, protest, direct action, and things to leverage pressure on people who aren't meeting the moment the way we need them to be. And then another part of what we do is coupling our advocacy and our protests and direct action with electing good people, like Brad Lander, who is endorsed by Indivisible Brooklyn. And this is basically what I just said, but part of that is also just organizing our communities and building power where we are to push the elected officials who represent us where we are. So as an organizer, the most important thing I want to do here tonight and why I'm here is to recruit you to do things with us. So here are some upcoming actions, one of which I'll talk a little bit more about. But on Saturday, we have the March for Protect Migrants, Protect the Planet. We do online organizing meetings that folks are able to come to. That's just where we're actually planning, let's go to a certain senator's house and stage a protest there. Or what are we going to do to support our endorsed candidates? On April 23rd, if there's any New York 11 residents here, we're also organizing to pressure Nicole Malliotakis, a Republican who represents part of New York City. Boo. And then, as Ana Maria mentioned, May 1st and May 3rd, I believe, there is a big protest moment as well. You can go to our website to sign up for these things, indivisiblebrooklyn.org, or we have our Mobilize. We send a weekly email on Sundays. Sometimes I wrote those emails. Other people write them as well. They have a lot of good opportunities for taking action. You can go to the next slide. So please sign up if you're not already. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Saturday. I am helping with this both as a member of Indivisible and with a climate families group that I work with that is not allowed to do political work. I think this is a really important moment. The issues of immigrant justice and climate justice are deeply connected. And this march was originally conceived to bring those two things together because people in many cases are coming here for a better life because of instability caused by the climate crisis. Climate change displaces more than 40 million children per year, not just people, but children alone. So part of what the Trump administration is doing is climate policy, but it's fascism in response to the climate crisis. It's saying we're going to build walls, we're not going to let anybody in, and we're going to, pump fossil fuels until we all go extinct. So it's coming up on Earth Day. This march is going to be amazing. There's so many organizations involved, including Indivisible Brooklyn. There are flyers in the back if you need to grab one with the QR code. And I hope that folks will come out and be there in this important moment. Anyone want to raise their hand if you're planning on coming? Okay, good. That's a lot of people. We can get a few more hands up. You can think about it in the next hour and then decide that you want to come as well. And just as I have a 3-year-old and a 2-month-old at home, and their names are Raphael and Adira. Raphael means healing, Adira means strength, and is in part named after Adi Barkan. And what I thought of as I was sitting listening to everyone and feeling really heartened and grateful for all of you and the organizing spaces that you've created when I was marching on April 5th, I had my newborn on my chest, my 3-year-old in the stroller. He calls protests hey, hey, ho-hos. He thinks they're He thinks they're incredibly fun and basically like a birthday party. So, so that's good. And I just, I had been feeling so much despair and so much fear. And I just had this moment where I was like singing into a bullhorn with my 2 kids, surrounded by other, thousands of other New Yorkers. And I felt good, and I felt alive, and I felt strong and healed for the first time in a while. So, I think the protests are important for the outcomes we want, but they're also important for our hearts, and the organizing is important for our hearts. So I hope that, I know everyone here is already doing things. That's why you're here. You're already doing things. But, go to your community, go to your friends, go to your neighbors, and get them to come and do things too. Get them to show up with their hearts and their communities, because that's what we need to get through this. And with that, I'm going to reintroduce Brad. Like I said, Indivisible Brooklyn would not be what it is without Brad convening that organizing space back in 2016. And he has been a trusted partner and mentor and friend to IMBK and to me since that time, and shown up in so many of the spaces I've been organizing in education, in climate, for democracy. And, I think this event itself typifies Brad's approach. He is making space for others. He is making space for people who are impacted. He's making space for activists who are not professional, politicians or lobbyists or whatever. He's making space for people to be here and say what they want to say and bring others into the work. And that's really something special, and that's why I'm happy to be here and to hand the mic back over to him.
Thank you, Liat. Liat also is like one of the best people at living that indivisible mantra and like supporting and coming out and also helping hold me accountable. So I want to give Liat that prop. One thing that Liat and I share that I didn't realize, but Meg and I tell this story. We raised Marek and Rosa a lot like her kids are being raised. And one day at school when Marek was, 3, I guess. He went to preschool and he came in and it was the day after Halloween and he was like, last night was amazing. We went to this incredible costume protest. All right. I want to just very quickly talk about the through line between what we're doing here tonight, standing up and organizing together to fight Trump, and the mayor's race. And some of it may be obvious, but I think there's a couple important connections that I just want to draw out, and then we'll take some questions and have a little dialogue. But to me, it seems like, look, we have spent the last hour or so hearing from people who are pushing and organizing to make sure that we're standing up and fighting for our values, in this case for like New York values. And that is critical in this moment, as we have heard, that we stand up and fight for those values. At the same time, we must govern our cities and states better if we're gonna live up to those values, because we're not living up to those values when thousands of our mentally ill neighbors are sleeping on subway platforms and the stoops of our buildings. We're not living up to New York values when the housing is so expensive that young people can't imagine that they could stay here, and Black New Yorkers are leaving the city because there's no way they could afford it, and young people can't imagine that they could become homeowners and the next generation of New Yorkers. We're not living up to our values when our own city hall is such a place of corruption that no one believes we will deliver on the things that matter to working families. So I am running half to do what we're doing here tonight, to make sure people have the opportunity to organize together and stand up and fight against this Trump regime on behalf of our values. And I am also running for mayor to govern this city more effectively, to bring honest, effective leadership back to City Hall so we can live up to our values, because that city where we end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness, that city where the housing is more affordable for working families, that city where there is childcare for every 3-year-old and 2-year-old and after school for all our kids, that city where there's a mayor's office of workers' rights. So if Donald Trump throws away and destroys the National Labor Relations Board, your city will have the backs of its workers. That's a New York City that can stand up and fight for its values better because it is governed in partnership and more effectively to live up to its values every single day. And that's why we wanted to have this town hall tonight, to connect the dots between standing up for our values and living up to them, and why I am so grateful to everybody who's been part of it and come out so far. And now I'm so grateful to take some of your questions, because we got to build this community together if we're going to do that work of taking our city back and taking our country back. So thank you guys so much for all of this. And now how are we doing this, Allison? All right. Shouldn't get too close together. We'll cross the streams, I think. So.
Okay, does this work? I'm going to go on this side so I can't, 6 feet or whatever.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Hirsch. I am Brad's campaign manager, and I have collected...
Best campaign manager in the business. Please give it up for Allison Hirsch.
I have collected all of the cards that have been submitted. And I want to just do full disclosure. It is now 7:30, and we promised to get you guys out of here by 8. And that is not enough time to answer all of these questions. So we are going to save these questions and figure out how to do maybe an Instagram Live to answer some of them, and et cetera, and answer them after the event if we don't get to them. But we're really excited that everybody had questions. So I'm going to start. Right. Mr. Lander. During the primary and general election, we will hear lots of promises about fighting Trump and protecting New Yorkers. How can we tell the difference between phony, fear-mongering promises and real plans for effective change in New York City and New York state policies on justice, economic fairness, education, and housing?
Ooh, all right.
Start with a softball.
Yeah, that one I think has largely been answered by it tonight. Yes, I mean, you know people who will do the work by people who have been doing it in the past, and recognize that it's a team effort and organized together with partners, because any mayoral candidate that tells you, I've got the answer to standing up and fighting for immigrant New Yorkers, but hasn't been fighting along with Make the Road and the New York Immigration Coalition and La Comena and Mixteca and all of those groups, is just like telling on themselves. Like, that's how you're going to do the work of organizing together. So partly it's by building together. Now, there are some real practical ways we can do things, and I'll just give one example. This actually is something that Meg took a lot of leadership on, as did BK Forge, who's also in the room. Let's hear it for BK Forge, which is Brooklyn for reproductive and gender equity. I'm the only candidate in the race with a platform for protecting reproductive rights and sexual and reproductive health. And part of that platform recognizes that we have to protect H&H in New York Health and Hospitals. They provide a lot of abortion care, contraception, and gender-affirming care, and they will no doubt be under attack over the next 4 years. Their budget's about $4 billion. About $1 billion of that is federal funding, which could be at risk. And there's no doubt that at some point they're going to weaponize the fact that H&H provides abortions and contraception and gender-affirming care. So what but not with any dime of the federal money. Sorry, I'm contractually obligated to make clear that there is federal money at H&H. It doesn't pay for those things now, but they're provided there. So what we propose to do in this platform is create a new authority funded with city, state, and private dollars to pay for that set of things, which is less than $100 million. So New York City and state can keep providing them while we protect that $1 billion and make sure H&H continues to be the premier public hospital network that we have. So it's like that model. Organize together with partners, come up with creative solutions, that inside-outside strategy that Liat talked about, that will deliver the answer to this question.
This is a little bit more specific, even. In the face of the gutting of the EPA and OSHA, how will you keep New York City on target for environmental issues against climate change?
All right. So was anyone there this morning? We announced our climate plan this morning on the roof of Brooklyn Solar Works, not too far from here. So now, in addition to having the only repro policy in the campaign, I think I also have the only climate policy in the campaign. And I actually want to say one quick thing here. Like, one thing that's kind of depressing me a little about the race right now is that obviously two utterly critical issues facing New York City is the future of our public schools and the future of our planet and our ability to develop, the climate policies to make this city and the planet more resilient and sustainable. And you barely hear in this mayor's race so far about either climate or public education. Obviously, there are lots of other critical issues that are important, but yes, we laid out a very detailed plan for how New York City can continue to push forward, both to convert to renewable energy and reduce carbon emissions and get to net zero in New York City, and to make the city more sustainable. So, what I'm doing as controller is leading the boldest public pension fund in the country on these issues. We divested from fossil fuels. We've got the boldest net zero plan in the country, and we're ahead of schedule to be net zero in financed emissions by 2040, thanks to that bold plan. As mayor, I've got this ambitious plan. You could clap for that. That's a big deal. The climate plan that I have as mayor is like so long and detailed, I'm not going to go into it too much, but I'm going to tell you two fun things about it, all right? First is this thing called Public Solar NYC. Right now, if you want to do solar on the roofs of your building, you can do it. We're proud to have it on our home. But you got to come out of pocket with some money and act like a developer and have people help you put all the tax credits and financing and funding together. Public Solar NYC will be the city doing that and coming to low and moderate income homeowners and other building owners and saying, the city will finance, permit, install, own, asset manage that array on your roof, and you can just benefit from the energy benefits that we'll share with you, and we can do hundreds of thousands of rooftop solar installations. Now, we won a federal grant as controller. I teamed up actually with the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. We won a Solar for All grant that has not yet been eliminated. Probably should not even say that, but even if it is, we designed it. Yeah, I'm gonna knock wood too. We designed that program so that we can do it with city capital dollars, and even if the federal government shreds the resources we're getting, we can move forward with the plan to do tens of thousands of rooftop solar installations through Public Solar NYC.
Okay.
Lots more in the plan. Check online, landerfornyc.com. Its most fun part is that the first summer of the Lander administration will be pool party summer, where we convert those public pools that are wonderful, but it feels like you're going through an airport security line to get into like what they should be, with vendors, food vendors, and music and community building. So check out Pool Party Summer. You'll all have an inaugural spot. So.
Okay. This is a little downer after Pool Party Summer, I'm not gonna lie. Does the city have adequate financial strength to withstand lawsuits, support of immigrants, infrastructure, education, et cetera, that may be required despite reduction of federal support?
Yeah, and I got to make this question worse before I answer it, because it's not only that the city is going to be very likely to get budget cuts that we're already seeing, that, obviously it's the $80 million that Elon Musk took, and there's cuts likely coming to healthcare and education. And then there's more we're going to need to do as a result. But one thing that's actually likely to make it even harder is that Trump's tariffs are very likely to tank the economy. A month ago, we were projecting kind of steady economic growth, but we're actually putting out a report tomorrow that says the city, as we move into our budget process, has to really reevaluate where we are, because the likelihood of an economic downturn or a mild recession has grown significantly as a result of tariff uncertainty. And when that happens, city tax revenues go down, and you have simultaneously more need because more people are out of work, and so you need more resources at your food pantries and soup kitchens and shelters, and less money. And that is now more likely thanks to Donald Trump. We had a strong economy before his administration. Our economy is significantly weaker now, and that's everywhere around the planet and the country and in New York City. So what we're proposing is to get ready for that. One little bit of good news is that this year has been very good so far for the city in terms of tax receipts, and we have the resources to bank at least $1 billion that we can put in reserves and make sure it's there next year when we need to stand up and protect people. I'll just give you one example of the kind of protection we're likely to need. One of the many cuts you probably haven't even heard of yet, because there hasn't been that much focus on the cuts at Department of Housing and Urban Development to housing, but they're cutting these emergency housing vouchers that got issued during the pandemic and that New York City gave to about 8,000 low-income families who were in shelter or homeless and are now housed with those 8,000 emergency housing vouchers that everyone expected the federal government would just keep paying for. And Trump announced that they are going to eliminate that program. And that's going to be 8,000 people who, if something doesn't change, lose their housing vouchers. And we're going to have to be ready to either pick them up with the city program to keep them housed, or if we don't do that, to pay for the shelters that they would need. So that $1 billion that we're going to bank, that's the kind of thing it's going to do, and downturn or no downturn, we'll be able to protect those folks. But I don't want to be too rosy. There's going to be a lot of harm done from what Trump is causing. So we will be as smart as we can about protecting people and managing for it. But why we're here tonight is because if we don't actually succeed in winning the midterms next year, it'll get far worse than that.
In the 2024 election, a number of New York City voters turned toward Trump. What will you do to ensure that New York City stays a blue city in a blue state?
Yeah, hear, hear. And look, I think that's a big part of what we're all trying to do tonight. Fun. So a lot of this, look, the way I read it is really a couple-fold. First, people are fed up with government that isn't fighting for them and working for them. And if you live in a city where the rent is so expensive that you're nervous you're not going to be able to make it next month, and you don't see any path forward to more housing stability, and you're working a crappy job and you don't see it getting better, and then you got kids and you were told that there was going to be a childcare slot for every 3-year-old, and then there wasn't one for you. Probably some of you have heard the story about my dental hygienist, but I'm still going to tell it. Because we're not too far from my dentist, Gowanus Dental, 3rd Avenue and A Street. Like a great dentist. I never had a good dentist before. And actually, like my uncle was a dentist, so don't tell him. But Gowanus Dental, great dentist. I go there, and I'm in the chair when my hygienist, she lives on Staten Island, she works in Brooklyn, she's like holding the Novocaine needle. And she says, this is last summer as she was waiting, she says, "Controller, I heard that the city was promising a childcare seat for every 3-year-old, and I was counting on it, but I'm 140th on the wait list for a program in my neighborhood," which was like not the shot of Novocaine that I was expecting. But part of the reason why I am committing to make sure that there's 3K slot for every New Yorker in my first year as mayor, and then work with New Yorkers for United for Childcare to expand that to 3-year-olds and after school, is that I do not want to have to go back to my dental hygienist without having a better answer than I had. But like those are the things we failed on. And when you make promises and don't deliver, or leave people feeling precarity, and then they don't even see you fighting for them, then they are vulnerable when someone comes along and says, I got someone to blame. It is the fault of these people over here or those folks over there. And that's how I read what happened. And the best thing, we got to do these 2 things we're doing tonight. Show people that standing up together is worth it, because it's not them, it's not others, it's like a collective effort. And if we let one group of people get picked off, we eventually all will. And then the other half is to actually fight for and deliver for people, because if they see government actually delivering more affordable housing and protecting tenants and delivering that child care and showing up for workers, they will be a whole lot more likely to say, next time I go to the polls, I know I actually could vote for Democrats, could vote for a vision of a government that's actually working, because I see that it is.
Okay. I think most of the other questions are somewhat repeats of style, so I'm going to ask the last 2 questions, 2 more questions of you. A lot of my friends are undecided between the WFP candidates. How do I convince them to back you, and I'm reading the language of the question, opposed to one of the alternative options?
Well, the nice thing is it doesn't have to be opposed to one of the alternative options. Of course, I hope... Sorry?
I'm talking to Anna Marie.
Oh, all right. Well, so this will be, and let me just kind of take one moment here on kind of ranked choice voting and the dream slate. Because, you know, Anna Maria kicked us off, and WFP endorsed 4 candidates so far. They're going to, you know, do some ranking later to help be strategic and make sure we win. But so far, there are 4 candidates together. That's me, Adrienne Adams, Speaker of the City Council, Sohran Mamdani, a New York State Assembly member, and Zelnor Myrie, a state senator. We could clap for the whole slate. That goes along with an important message, DREAM, which used to stand for Don't Rank Eric or Andrew for Mayor. Now Eric is not running as a Democrat, which, you know, I don't know when he was a Democrat, but he's not running as a Democrat in the primary, so you can't rank him there anyway. So some people are going with Don't Rank Evil Andrew for Mayor. Some people have switched to DRAG, I guess, which is like Don't Rank Andrew Girl. And maybe there'll be other acronyms that people use. I do think it's worth saying a little bit. Like, I'm glad we haven't given that much time to Andrew Cuomo. But you've seen that he is leading in the polls right now. And, you know, I think that's partly just kind of name recognition in a time of Trumpian distraction. That is partly a kind of pandemic memory repression, which serves to have people have forgotten that he resigned in disgrace after 13 women accused him of sexual harassment. And a new one actually popped up this week. Former Syracuse Mayor Stephanie Miner reported that he forcibly kissed her in an abusive way several times during, you know, when she was mayor and he was governor. This is somebody who sent thousands of seniors to their deaths in nursing home during COVID. And then, you know, maybe that could have gone down as a tragic mistake if he had owned up to the mistake, but instead he lied to them about it, lied to Congress about it, himself marked up a Department of Health report to undercount deaths, all to protect a $5 million book deal. Then this week it came out that during the pandemic, he overruled the health department and used the governor's office to purchase $500 million worth of medical equipment, pulse oximeters and ventilators, 250,000 pieces of medical equipment. How many of those do you think ever made it out to help save New Yorkers' lives? 3 of them, of 250,000, the other 249,997 approximately are rotting in warehouses right now. And then also, I guess last point I'll make here, somebody who not only sexually harassed those women, but went into court to force all of us, to force taxpayers to spend $60 million on his own legal defense, which is like way more than any person who had to spend their own money would have anything to do, you know, have access to, including issuing subpoenas for the gynecology and therapy records of his accusers. This is an abusive, corrupt person who is running for his own revenge tour. He is not looking to solve the problems of New York City, where he hasn't lived in 25 years. Doesn't even look to me like someone who loves New York City. He looks like someone who has kind of a certain angry, vengeful spite for it and just wants to win his revenge at the polls. And that is not what New Yorkers are going to do, is it? So, we're not going to rank Andrew Cuomo for mayor. In terms of why to encourage people to rank me first, hopefully tonight you've heard some of the reasons from folks other than me. We'll be spending a lot of time on that over the next 2 months, and if you signed up tonight, you'll get toolkits and information, but I think it's basically this, like for New Yorkers who want honest, effective leadership back at City Hall, I've got a track record of delivering honest and effective leadership. A real track record of delivering on affordable housing, of making conditions better for workers in New York City, whether they're deliveristas or Uber and Lyft drivers or fast food workers or freelancers, all of whom have working conditions dramatically better because of legislation we've passed. The work I've done as controller on public housing, on climate, on affordable housing, on workers' rights, is delivering, has delivered a safer, more affordable, and better run city for New Yorkers. So those people who are hungry for someone with that proven track record of honest and effective leadership and want to see and believe in that safer, more affordable, and better run New York City, don't rank Andrew. Put all the candidates on the slate on your ballot, but rank Brad Lander number 1. All right, I think we're going to leave it there with one exception. And this was Meg's idea, but we're still going to do it. Okay, today is my mom's birthday. And not only am I not in St. Louis for my mom's birthday, but usually I go for Passover. No, we're just going to make a video of everyone singing happy birthday. Oh, Meg was worried that I was like FaceTiming my mom, and that might take a while. So we're not going to do that tonight because I want you guys to be able to get out of here. But usually I go to St. Louis for Passover. This year we were here campaigning, so we hosted in our house. We did send Marek and Rosa to St. Louis, so they still had the grandkids. And Rosa brought her boyfriend, so anyway, they were mostly happy. But if you will just join me, her name is Carol, and if we could just do like a nice big round of happy birthday, then that will make her very happy. So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday. Thank you guys very much. We will take the more detailed questions. Hopefully people kind of either put their names on them. So if you have like specific questions you want answered, we will follow up. We'll do kind of an Insta Live as well if there's ones that seem like they should be out there to the public. But mostly we are going to stay in touch with you, both on all these events that you heard tonight so you could get connected to Transformative Schools and 504 Dems and Make the Road and Working Families Party and Indivisible, BK and BK Forge and all the other groups in the room, and keep organizing and getting to those events. And we will, of course, stay in touch with you so you can talk to your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers and help me win this election on June 24th and take New York City back and protect New Yorkers. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Oh, and I should say, and thank you to Jeremy and our whole team that organized this awesome event.